So this is a video where I'm just going to go over 5 code words that you never want to hear um, from an RPG maker. Like if they say this, you gotta say to yourself, oh my God, this is not good. So without much ado, let's get this started. But before I dive into it, I want you to watch the trailer for Baton Kaitos, one of my favorite 6th gen RPGs. I would put it up there with Skies of Arcadia um, as really good 6th gen RPGs. The holy trinity of 6th gen RPGs would be this, um, Skies of Arcadia, and Dragon Quest and Rogue Galaxy are tied for the 3rd spot. So basically, that's my cheating a bit holy trinity of 6th gen games. But without much ado, let's get into this video. Yes, streamlining. If a RPG maker, developer, slash publisher tells you, we streamlined the game, okay, I need you to do 2 things. Get your shit and run. Run far, far away. If someone tells you, we streamlined this game, holy shit, run. Jump out of a window and run as far fucking away as you possibly can. You want to know why? Because streamlining is a dirty word. Streamlining just basically means they took the coolest parts of the previous installment of the series, the little knit and gritty, deep set little bits and pieces, and you know what they did? They stripped it out so that they could fucking make it more appealing to casuals. Now, normally I'm all for casuals getting into gaming. Good, great. But here's the thing about RPGs. Good RPGs demand that you don't fucking sit there and go, oh, well, I'm gonna make this game easier, because it dilutes what makes an RPG an RPG. A good RPG demands that you dive into the game and get fucking good at using the systems within the game in order to get better. So streamlining is a fucking dirty word. And one of the worst offenders of this is, well, you're seeing the trailer right here of the first game in the series, the sequel, Origins. God awful. So with that being said, I'll show you another example of streamlining gone awry. That's right. Is this game right here, Skyrim. Now this game is guilty of it. One of the most prevalent ways of showing the dearth of streamlining and how it can really bring down a franchise. Now, originally, Elder Scrolls, back in the day, the first 2 games, Daggerfall and Arena, were very much kind of like proxies for a D&D title. However, as time went on, these games became, how can I put this, their own thing. Then when Morrowind hit, the game really opened up. And Oblivion kind of shrunk that down a bit. Things that you could do in Morrowind you couldn't do in Oblivion. Then Skyrim came, and the role-playing aspects that let you role-play were completely wasted. What I mean by this is, they had streamlined it so much that there was nothing left to really make this into an RPG. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, in past Elder Scrolls games, you had classes, which determined what you were good at, and pretty much predetermined what you would kind of do. So you could create a class called the Merchant. You would suck at fighting and combat, but your persuasion and bartering skills would be insane. So you couldn't play the game conventionally. You'd have to do things like barter for better weapons or convince people to fight for you. And this basically forced you to role play, to play a role. Which is kind of like what you do in RPGs, but not in this shit anymore. No. So essentially, this title, despite many people saying, "Oh man, I love Skyrim," for hardcore fans of the franchise, Skyrim kind of alienated them. You played it, but it was like, ugh. Now the upside is that there are people who are basically modders, homebrew people, who have basically added a lot of things to make the game more RPG centric. Hopefully this year, maybe next year, we'll be getting more Oblivion, which is Morrowind done in the, Morrowind, which is Skyrim done in the Oblivion engine. Oblivion done, Morrowind and more Oblivion, which is Morrowind. No. Basically, they're going to take Morrowind and Oblivion and put them in the Skyrim engine, which I'm okay with that because those are, in my opinion, the better Skyrim titles. That being said, not Skyrim, they're the better Elder Scrolls titles because they encourage RPG type gameplay, something which you really don't see nowadays. So that being said, let's move on to the next dirty word, which is graphics. Here's the fourth dirty word you need to be aware of when you're talking about an RPG. Graphics. Now, you'll hear this a lot when you're talking about gaming, especially with RPGs nowadays. Man, we're using a new graphical engine. Look how gorgeous this looks. Okay. All RPGs, as we know them, JRPGs, computer RPGs, Western RPGs, doesn't matter. All of them have their roots in D&D, where you were basically just reading shit from out of a book. Okay? And the impetus that you had to make you want to continue to play this game was the story. And role-playing games, almost more than any other genre, are built upon telling you that story. Now, if someone is giving you a role-playing game and the story is ass, but the graphics are gorgeous, then that means that what they're selling you is a inferior RPG experience. And I know what some people are going to say. No, that's not true. How can this be? It's just the way it is. RPGs are predicated on the story. Now graphics, I'm not saying that graphics have no place in an RPG, but if the entire RPG is built upon graphics, or the first thing they're touting is how gorgeous it looks, run. Because RPGs are about story first, gameplay second, and graphics are like third or fourth down that list. So with that being said, let's talk about the third dirty word, which is, ironically, expanded story after the cut. This is a big one. And we've seen it a lot in a lot of this. Square Enix is guilty of this. and I know what some people would say. What do you mean they're guilty of this? Hear me out, okay? Square Enix loves, over the last 10, 15 years, has been going ham on making expanded stories for games that really don't need it. It started way back on the PS2 with 10-2. No one needed a fucking sequel to Final Fantasy X. No one was asking for a sequel to Final Fantasy X. Final Fantasies have always been about basically creating your own thing, each having a game that stands by itself. Now, all the games share certain shared sequences and ideas, but at the end of the day, they're very, very much their own thing. And that's what kind of made them into a good game. Now, I find it personally offensive when Square Enix started making all these fucking sequels. Kind of like how Disney made sequels to movies that didn't need sequels, like Little Mermaid 2, Little Mermaid 3, Beauty and the Beast 2, Like, no one needed a sequel to this shit, you know? And that's how it basically felt. Now, you know, an RPG, especially when, now, I mean, making a sequel to a successful RPG isn't the worst thing in the world. No, the worst thing in the world is when I say an expanded story, is when in order for you to even fucking get the basic story of the game, you have to read books, novels, watch a fucking movie. Look, you know, Chrono Trigger is one of the greatest RPGs ever made. And in order to understand what it's about, all you have to do is simply play the game. Like, I don't have to read the manga. I don't have to watch the OVAs. Just play the game. I know what's going on. That is a good RPG. So stay tuned to the second dirty word of gaming. One of my personal favorites, or disfavorites in this case, and it is multiplayer. I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say before you even say it. Some people are going to say, well, what do you mean? This is such a dirty word. Hear me out. The reason RPGs, multiplayer is a dirty word for an RPG, is simply because, essentially speaking, you know, RPGs, computer RPGs, console RPGs, took out the whole, as I said earlier in this video, they are derived from playing games on the tabletop, right? Tabletop gaming was all about playing with someone else. But then one day someone said, well, what if my friends live across the country, or I don't have anyone to play this tabletop game with? So they made the computer the dungeon master. They made the computer your party members. They made the programming is handling all of that. So basically, but at the core, you still have to do the same things you were doing when you were playing, you know, on your handheld. I mean, on your tabletop. Except now you're going to have to figure that shit out for yourself, and that is the core of it. Now, if you want to make a multiplayer online game that has RPG elements, go for it. But don't take a game that's been single player for years and try and make it into a multiplayer game. That's just offensive, okay? I mean, it's offensive and kind of annoying, and I don't like it. Okay? I don't like it one bit. It pisses me off. You know what else pisses me off? People pigeonholing multiplayer online shit onto an RPG. Now, you know, if you want to add that as an aside, like a fantasy life where, oh, well, okay, you can play this game single player, but it also has a multiplayer component. Knock yourself out. But don't fucking give me a game that is primarily supposed to be played with one player, and you, in your infinite wisdom or money-grubbing goodness, sit there and take the damn game and fucking add all this stupid-ass shit to it. Like, hey, look at this. It's got online multiplayer. No one wants online multiplayer on a RPG. Like, never was I playing Chrono Trigger and saying, you know, it'd be great if in order for me to beat this boss, I needed 20 other people. Never had it happen. And I've been playing video games for years, so fuck that shit. So with that being said, let's talk about the last dirty word number one, which I'm going to save for a surprise. You'll have to watch the transition to figure out what dirty word number 5 is, or number 1. Oh, this is the big one. This is the one that I hate with a passion. This is where a game becomes popular. You know, people wind up loving it, and then some asshole decides, oh, this game's popular, So what they do is that they'll take that game that's now popular and they'll fucking they'll make a sequel. But the people who originally made that game don't even work there anymore. So it's not even the same game. It has the same name, but it's not the same game. And that is offensive to me. I hate that. I hate when this happens with RPGs. For example, Seiken Densetsu, right? Seiken Densetsu, there's 3 Seiken Densetsus. There's The Legend of Mana, aka The Sword of Mana. Then there's Seiken Densetsu 2, which is the Seiken Densetsu that everyone knows as Secret of Mana. And then there's Seiken Densetsu 3, right? Which is The Legend of Mana or some shit like that. I don't know the Japanese translation. I just call it Secret of Mana 3. Okay? But after that, there was a series of games. There was a game on the PS1. There was a game on the PS2 that was ass. There was a Game Boy Advance port, a redo of the original Secret of Mana. I mean, like, I'm a Mana fanboy, right? Like, I grew up with this series, but the last few games weren't even made by the guy. He was gone. Some other people worked on that shit. Or, people making games, and it's like, oh, who the fuck, the original people aren't even making this game. And I mean, I know, some people will say, well, what about The Legend of Zelda? Miyamoto isn't working on that game, but he trained the guy who works on that game. He worked with these people who work on that game and trained them up. So basically, while he might not be physically working on that game, you can feel the touches all over the place. So with that being said, I guess it's time to just talk about the final little bit, the overview after the cut. Yes, so here we go. This is the thing that has always kind of pissed me off about a lot of RPGs. These are just, a little list of things that just always kind of just made me go, fuck this shit. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, what the hell are you talking about? Why are you talking about how RPGs just kind of, why are you talking about this? Well, I mean, I like RPGs. I grew up with RPGs. RPGs, for me, when I was much younger, were a high value proposition for what I was playing. And I always enjoyed that. And I love the genre. I mean, you're talking to a guy who played tons of tabletop RPGs, console RPGs, computer RPGs. Like, that was like my main thing. And I'm talking like, I'm old school RPG. Like, I played Rogue on MS-DOS, where you were just like, your character, like, you choose a class, but your class was always like some shit like, like, if you were a warrior, your character would be a W moving around on the screen. If you were a dwarf, if you were a dwarven warrior, you'd be DW. Shit like that. Like, that's basically like what I'm talking about when I said I've been playing RPGs a long time. And then don't get me started on my tabletop thing. And it's a genre that I don't want to see go like so many other genres, like console games and PC games and first-person shooters and 2D platformers. I don't want to see this franchise die off. But for the love of God, in order for it to stay healthy, the bullshit has to end. People have to stop just making shit just for the sake of making it. There needs to be some fucking quality in what people are making. So with that being said, that's the end of this video. Enjoy and have fun.